To start off with, I'm Alana Davis, your host and meetup organizer. I work with e-commerce shops to remove friction from the buying process. My focus is on rescuing Shopify websites, making them more effective and attracting more visitors, providing better SEO, and increasing conversion rates, all at a fraction of the cost of a full redesign. Here is a very quick look at our agenda today. This session is being recorded. And so assuming everything works and that there's no issues, I will be sharing the video in the next day or so with our recap email that's going to go out. But I'm super excited for our speaker today, so I don't want to waste a ton of time. Let's go ahead and keep moving this along. A quick shout out to our sponsor. Jason LD for SEO transforms your SEO with rich results, a program that allows you to show search enhancements such as review stars, price, availability, all in Google, Bing, Pinterest, and other search engines. The app also provides all the structured data you need for Merchant Center. Install JSON LD for SEO today to instantly add SEO features to your store. Upcoming events. So we do have an event showing up or coming up on February 27th. Our speaker will chat with us about the power of pricing and how you can reframe your pricing strategy to increase revenue and attract new customers. So as I mentioned, I'm going to be sending out a recap email in the next day or so. In that recap email, you can also share if you have any topics or areas that you want me to explore. Please let me know. It really does help me to know what's working well or not so that we can continue to provide a valuable resource to you. All right, so without further ado, I want to introduce Christine, who is going to share her breadth of knowledge on accessibility for Shopify. So Christine, welcome, and thank you so much for being here.
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Hi there. I'm so happy to be here. So let me share my screen. Everybody see my screen okay?
Yes, you're good.
Alrighty. Okay. I want to do a little housekeeping before I start. And as she said earlier, if you could put your questions in chat, and I will address them at the end. And this is being recorded, and we'll share the recording. The slides will be shared with other registered attendees afterwards. And it looks like I'm running. Okay. And then here is a quick disclaimer. I am not a lawyer. I do not specialize in ADA, nor am I a lawyer in ADA, or have anything to do with legal rights pertaining to accessibility or ADA laws. I'm not certified from IAAP or the International Association of Accessibility Professionals. So I need to make that disclaimer before we go forward. However, I do want to share with you that I have been speaking about this topic since 2016, long before it became a trending topic among Shopify, WordPress, and even in LinkedIn. I became very familiar with what is known as the WCAG, which is known as the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. In addition to, over the years, I've been able to establish a vast network of experts who are certified, who are lawyers, and who are specialists in this accessibility industry. And as a result, I've been able to build up this knowledge. So I think of myself more of an advocate more than anything. So what is accessibility? And this is something that I tell everybody what my perception of what accessibility is. Accessibility is the process of making information, activities, or environments sensible, meaningful, and usable for as many people as possible. I'm going to leave this up there for a minute because This is the overall overreaching message that I want everybody to keep in their mind when they think about accessibility. And accessibility, for me more than anything, is not just accessibility, making things usable for people with disability. It's also about inclusion. Now, what I want to do is introduce you to Tim Berners-Lee. He is the inventor of the World Wide Web. Yes, he invented the World Wide Web, and we've been inventing the websites for 34 years. That's how long we've been building websites. And when he originally invented the websites, he was a scientist. He built it so that scientists could communicate around the world. And when he realized the power of the web, he realized that the universality of it. He realized that access by everyone also included people with disabilities. And this is the message that he goes out today. He talks about accessibility. He talks about net neutrality. He talks about the openness of the World Wide Web. So this is a very important man, because he not only invented the World Wide Web, he is also the director of W3C, which is the consortium that developed the WCAG, the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. So this is the consortium that developed these guidelines. So when I talk about the WCAG, we're referring to web accessibility or digital accessibility. And they define that as websites, tools, and technologies that are designed and developed so that people with disabilities can use them. Accessibility benefits everyone. Benefits all disabilities that affect access to the web. I'm talking about auditory, cognitive, neurological, physical, speech, and visual. Now, among these, I've listed some of the associated disabilities among them: deaf, hard of hearing, autism, dyslexia, Parkinson's, paralysis, amputation, stuttering, color blindness, it goes on. So this is a variety of disabilities that was listed here. It also benefits people without disabilities. Older people with changing abilities as they get older. People with temporary disabilities, such as a broken arm, a broken leg, broken collarbone, a broken wrist. People in situational limitations, such as being in an environment where you can't turn on the audio. Now, we can think about moments like that, such as being in an airplane, bus, train. Those are examples of situational limitation. People using slow internet connections or have limited bandwidth. So this is how web accessibility can benefit those without disabilities. Now I have an illustration here of a crosswalk, and you see maybe a baby buggy, a scooter, and a man walking, pulling a suitcase. What I want to talk about what's called the curb cut effect. The wheelchair ramp is an example of a curb cut effect. Now the ramp was originally designed for wheelchair users. Now, it was originally built in the 1940s for war veterans. It wasn't until the 1970s that it became law that it has to be built for every walkway. So, but it's now so universal, we don't even think about it feet for wheelchair ramps. That's what curb cut effect is. We use the curbs for so many different ways. They're pulling heavy loads across it, mothers pulling baby babies over it, runners, skateboarders, an old person with a walker. That's what the curb cut effect is. The curb cut effect is the phenomenon in which a disability-friendly feature being used and appreciated by a much larger group of people than for what it was originally designed for. The caption is another one. The captions are meant for people like me. But Verizon Media said 80% of the people who use captions don't have a hearing loss. They're using it as a situational limitation for the most time, or they just like using it. Another example of a curb cut effect. Mothers are using it to improve their child's literacy. Turn it on because they learn how to read better. So that's another example of a curb cut effect. And I'll take it even a step further when it comes to your website. Okay, I've talked about this in the past, how adding accessibility features to a website can improve your SEO. That's another example of a curb cut effect. By adding the alt attributes, the description to the images, that's a curb cut effect. When you do that for the screen readers, those text descriptions, the Google and search engine like that, so therefore the site ranks higher. So internet, that's another one. So the same text description that you add to the image or video, so a person who is on a slow internet, they can turn off that image and they can still get the same information. So that's another way of looking at how you can, the accessibility features that you add to your website create another curb cut effect. And captions. Also, when you use captions on your video, enhances your SEO. So since Google can't watch the video, so when you add closed captions to it, those texts in the closed captions are actually searched and indexed by Google search engine. I bet you didn't know that. So why is accessibility such a big deal? Is it a fad? It isn't. The WCAG was established in May of 1999. It was designed by the consortium to make the web more accessible for people with disabilities. The ADA, or the American with the Disability Act, was not passed until 1990. The first accessibility lawsuit was not until 2012. It was the NAD, the National Association for the Deaf, filed a lawsuit against Netflix. The reason? They weren't captioning the movies. That was the first accessibility lawsuit. The next biggest lawsuit, you probably have heard of it, was again in 2017. It was the blind man who sued Domino's Pizza. It was the website and the smartphone app. It was not accessible to the screen readers. So those are the biggest ones that catapulted the accessibility lawsuits more than anything. So the American Bar Association says since 2018, website and mobile app accessibility lawsuits have made up about a fifth of all ADA Title III filings in the federal courts, which now consistently exceed 10,000 lawsuits annually. Since 2020, over 85% of these filings are happening in 3 states: New York, Florida, and California. However, I need to point this out. These numbers do not include the number of websites and mobile app cases filed in the state courts and the demand letters that are resolved prior to the filing of any lawsuit and the DOJ enforcement action that were resolved the cases were before they were filed in the lawsuits. So what we see is not all of it, because we have the federal, and we have the state level, and then we have demand letters, and then we have the DOJ. So much more bigger going on here. Other than lawsuits, why do we need to think about it? I say it's the right thing to do anyway. 1 in 4 adults in the United States, and I'm talking about the United States here, I'm not talking about globally. 1 in 4 adults have some form of disability. When I talk about disability, there's some things you need to know. Not all disabilities are visible. That's one. People with disabilities, they don't always tell people, especially when they're at a workforce or a workplace. Some people go to work and they don't reveal them. So they don't even enter them in, surveys when they're filing for employment. So some of the statistics, until recently, they're starting now asking people to fill out an employment app to designate if they have a disability or not. And even in that case, they won't even put it on there, just for the fear of not being hired. So anyway, 1 in 4 adults have some form of disability. I say you're leaving money on the table by ignoring this statement. Let's look at this. 16 to 20 years old, 6.5% have some form of disability. 21 to 64 years old, 10.5% have disability. Now, when I say 1 in 4 adults in the United States, we're talking 61 million people. So look at these percentages, try to do the numbers. So 21 to 64 years old, 10.5% have a disability. So that group right there, that's our coworkers, our neighbors, our friends, our family. The aging population is the next largest segment. 65 to 74 years old, 24.2% have a disability. 75 years and older, 47.1% have a disability. I look at that group, that's your parents, your grandparents, your relatives. It's the right thing to do. So what about these ADA or accessibility plugins? Yes, there's a lot of them. I lost count. I think I gave up. I think there's 115 plugin overlays out there. I mean, I tried counting them. I think there's 115 or something, but don't hold me to them. Are they good? No. Can you or should you use them? No. So what about them? Can they make the site compliant? No. Absolutely not. To be ADA compliant, it's not really the right way of saying it. It's more of to meet the WCAG conformance standards. That's more of what we want to achieve. As I said, the WCAG is the guideline. that we all refer to, especially the people in the accessibility field. That's the document that we all refer to when we try to make a website accessible, when we try to make an app accessible. They're revising it so that can make gaming accessible. So we want to meet the WCAG conformance standards, okay? There are 3 conformance levels in that document: level A, level AA, level AAA. Our bare minimum that we need to meet is level A. However, it should be our goal to meet level AA. And the way it works, each WCAG level builds on the previous level. So if you want to meet level AA, you need to meet all of level A plus level to the sub-criteria of AA. So that means, as you can see on the slide, there are 30 level A success criteria. So they list out 30 success criteria that you need to meet in order to be at level A. Then in level AA, there are 20 more success criteria. So in order to meet level AA, you have to take 30 out of level A and then add the level AA 20. And that gives you 50 total that you need to meet in order to be level AA. I hope that becomes clear now when I go on to explain about the plugin. For level AAA, you need to meet 78 success criteria, all of them. So that's why when we say our bare minimum requirement is to meet is level A. However, we should strive towards level AA. So what's the difference between a plugin and overlay? Well, the both acts, the column acts. An overlay is just used to detect and fix accessibility issues on a website. It's installed by adding a code, maybe single line of code, JavaScript typically. It modifies the site usually at browser level, not touching the code. They tend to slow the site down, and they force, some of them do, then they force the user to use a different interface to get around the site. Accessibility plugins allow the website owner to add site features to support the user's potential accessibility needs while they make permanent changes to the website. The overlay doesn't make permanent changes, the plugin does. Many of them can detect certain issues and may fix some of the issues found. The plugins add controls at the front end of the site to allow the user to adjust the text size, contrast, and so forth. The plugin only detects 25 to 30% of the issues. They don't detect all of them, only 25 to 30. And they can give false positives. Remember what I said about level A and level AA? So what's the F4? That's the F4. A person who needs to have a text inlays on a screen really doesn't need the plugin or the overlay to be able to do that. They could do it through their own screen controls. So can we. A person who needs text to speech isn't going to appreciate the site that has a built-in speech synthesizer. They have one of their own through their own accessibility tools. Most of these people had their own assistive tools and their own favorite tools and browser settings already tuned and ready. And we're forcing them to use the plugin overlay. The biggest kicker is that these plugins or overlays need to be turned on by the user. And where are they located most of the time? At the bottom, as an icon, or as a link. So what's the uproar over the plugins or overlays? I can go around. Some of them don't, most of the users use their smartphones. They don't work well on smartphones. They don't really make a site accessible. They make them even more accessible. And you can poke fun of it even more. More than me, really. They don't caption the video for the deaf. So what good are they? So that's the uproar over plugins and overlays. I'm usually asked whether I know the accessible themes. No, not really. There's no such thing as accessible themes. Let me clarify something. There's no such thing as 100% accessibility or 100% accessible themes. The reason being is when you load a theme, when you add things to it, like a plugin, like photographs and color, you can't ensure sufficient contrast. You can't really make sure the putting the headings in the right order. You can't tag a body text that is a list as a list. You can't caption video. You can't, those themes just can't, add all attributes to the images. It can't check tab order and reading order. Those are the things that the theme cannot do. It still requires a developer and a designer to come in and do the work, no matter what. You can get a theme that does the accessible. The way they might be accessible is that they've simplified. We've got a simple font. They've made the shopping process easy. The layout almost in a proper structure. Okay, no bells and whistles, no carousels, just simple layout. That's how they can call themselves a accessible theme. But when you start adding video, adding carousels, adding color, adding bullet points, that's where you need to come in and add accessibility functions. So here are some of the things I'm going to go forward with. How some of the things that you can implement that would be a progress towards either level A or level AA. These tips that I'm mentioning to you will be appreciated by your users. And they can be a step towards level A or level AA. But whatever you implement, and if you want to take it to level A or level AA, you will need to refer to the WCAG document and decide what you want to go, where you want to go. But however, if you implement these tips, they will be appreciated by your users. So tip number one, follow the proper structure in the layout of the site. That means use the headings convey meaning and structure. So I have a screenshot image here, and if you can see it, we've got that H1, which is the main header, and then we've got the subheader, which is typically H2, and then we've got the H3, but it's in the proper order. Okay, H1, H2, H3, H4. And we've got the body copy. Usually I'm going to use, H1, and then there's H2, and then there's the body copy. Or there might be a subheader, and then an H3, and then there's a body copy. But it's in the proper order and proper structure. I can't tell you how many times I've gone through a site working in a proper structure. This is for a screen reader. This is very important for a screen reader. Google loves this too when you follow the proper structure. So this is tip number 1. Okay? Tip number 2, use art attributes to describe images. And up here is a couple images. We got a bicycle rider on one and a bag of potato chips. So try to think of it like e-commerce sites without getting too. So up at the top with the bicycle, here's the guy wearing a helmet. It says man wearing a helmet riding a bicycle. That's a good one. Bicycle. Image of someone riding a bicycle. Now, we don't want to start with image. We just want to briefly describe what we're looking at. So basically, there's a man wearing a helmet riding a bicycle. That's all we need to say. And it's kind of like, used to be thinking like Twitter. Before Twitter ended up 240 characters, we only have about 140 characters or so in here. That's what we want to take advantage of, to be able to describe it enough so a person who has visual impairment or a person who doesn't have enough internet, if they remove that image, there's enough in there that they would know what's in that space. Same thing with a bag of chips. It says Lay's classic potato chips, 1.5 ounce. That's pretty specific. So we're good there. I got another one. Okay, and good. And I put the code in there, but it will look like in the code on the back end if we were putting in the HTML code, how you can add it as alt tag. And it says stack of blueberry pancakes with powdered sugar. That's awesome. You can do it that way. That's great. If you said pancakes, who wins? Nobody. Grab it if you can. So here's some quick 5 tips on how to write good image description. Be specific, distinct, never start with image of or picture of. Use keywords sparingly. For the love of God, don't overstuff it with keywords. Include the text that is part of the image, and don't add to alt text with decorative images. Now, and that's one that needs clarification. So up at the top, we usually have hero image. That's usually decorative. We don't need to describe that. We can get away with not having to describe that. But that's one example of what we mean by decorative images. Tip number 3, ask sizes to be 14 pixels. Ideally, they should be 16. And again, this is not just for screen readers, but this is for people that have visual impairment or dyslexia. Tip number 4, be mindful of sufficient color contrast. I've got minimum A, which is level A, and then double A. Double A is something that we want to achieve for more than anything when it comes to color contrast. I have listed a tool here, Stark, has an app that you can install if you use Figma that will help you with the color contrast. That's my favorite tool. And then I have the next slide here is an example of what's a good color contrast ratio, and above it was math. And ideally, you want to try to go for where it's text, color foreground and background with 4.5 ratio. So this is an example of it. And then tip number 5, descriptive link and button. Yeah, this is where we try to get away with click here, click here, click here, bring more, read here, read here. This is probably more annoying to screen readers than anything. But we can try to get a little bit better at it by being a little bit more prescriptive for our links and buttons. And here's a couple of suggestions where maybe we could be a little bit more helpful with the screen reader. And I provided a bad and a good here. Makes the difference here. View all products rather than learn more. Shopify. Here, click here for detail. We can say read detail. So those are better ways of being descriptive. Tip number 6, keep your navigation simple. This is more of being mindful of the checkout process. I hear so much from people who are visually impaired or blind. They get frustrated when the checkout process is complicated. It's very hard for them to go through it with the screen reader. The ideal scenario, if I could point out, if they're at the shopping cart page, if there was some way to announce to them that there are 3 more steps when they get to the payment page. So if we could tell them that they're at the shopping cart page, that they need to go to the next page to review the item. And then when they arrive at the review page for the review the item, let them know that they need to go to the next page to fill out the shipping and billing info, and then go to the payment info to complete the payment. And then when they hit the submit and fill everything out and the order is confirmed, let them know that the order has been confirmed and what they can expect after that. The script can be written on the back end, that others can be, but however, for good customer experience, it may not be a bad idea to put those things on there, let them know, let your users know what to expect through the checkout process. And then when the order is confirmed, let people know what is the next step, what will happen. Will they get an email notification of the order? How long will it take the order to arrive? And things like that. It's the same thing. That's what I'm trying to point out here. Tip number 7, caption and describe the video. Here is something where if you are playing music on your site, if you have lyrics, you don't have to caption them. However, your video should not be at autoplay. And if you're playing music on them, they should be muted. Just play it. No sound. You should not be playing sound at all. Videos that have dialogue should be captioned and include transcripts. That is the accessibility way. And if you want to make video that has noise in it, it's advised not to. And it is for the reason of PFPD. People that have that syndrome or situation, that's fall under disability. So that's why they say video should not be set at autoplay. However, if you have a video that's at autoplay, it should be playing slowly. If you want it so that there's no controls on it. However, if it's moving fast, then you need to have controls on it because they could turn off the speed or stop the video from playing. The same applies for carousels. If you want to have carousels, you must have control for your carousel. And for the screen reader, you need to describe the images that are going back and forth. You need to be able to describe the first image, and as it slides to the next image, you need to be able to describe with the next image. You have to be able to describe the transition. If you don't have the capability of doing that, then don't play the carousel. Just have a static picture. If you're trying to be accessible. Then tip number 7, caption your video and don't play carousel. Tip number 8, provide clear error and success messages. Now this has to do with forms. So when you're having them fill out your contact forms, or if you're having them fill out your spelling, your checkout code, they enter the wrong information. This is very important. Instead of saying you have an error, make sure you have a way of explaining where the error is. That they enter wrong email address, wrong zip code, whatever. Let them know. You need to be clear with that, especially with account login. So this is very important. If the order has gone through, please don't be cute about it. Just let them know it's gone through. Tip number 9, use 34 pixels by 34 pixels trackable area. The picture I'm showing here is what I mean by that. This is more for people that have dexterity issues. If you can think of people that have multiple sclerosis, Parkinson's, anybody that has challenges, even if they have a broken wrist. Mobile phone. Make sure you have a wide enough space for users to activate buttons or click on links, regardless of the device that they're using. So this is something you should be testing. The clickable areas be large enough per target. That will make a buy and they add to cart button easier to select. And of course, it'll increase the sales. So that's tip number 9. That's the biggest one right there. Tip number 10, provide multiple ways of support. Email, text, chat, and phone. Your support team should be adaptable and flexible. Responsiveness is important. Here's what I mean by that. And I'm going from some of my own personal affairs and from other experiences that I've heard about. You should always start with, how can I help you today? Even if you are aware that maybe someone on the other end might be struggling. Don't give them any special treatment. Just proceed as you would with anybody else. Take your time, be patient, and try not to interrupt them or try to complete the sentence for them. Just listen and wait and try to wait for them to finish. If they are experiencing difficulty understanding you, what you're trying to say to them, don't hang up. Ask them for an alternative communication arrangement. If it's on the phone, see if text or email or chat would be better. If the customer is using an interpreter, I use an interpreter for medical or legal cases. The customer support, I really do. I use chat more than anything. But for whatever reason, should they try to get on the phone with you, and they happen to use an interpreter, and you see that interpreter, proper way of handling this is don't look at the interpreter, look at the person, address that person. So that's the proper conduct right there. So what does this all mean then? As an agency owner or a site owner, what I'm trying to say is that overlays and plugins is not the solution. Plugins and overlays don't make your site or your client site 100% compliant. They don't. Accessibility is a process and a mindset. Don't let fear drive you to the quick fix. So don't let the fear of being sued because of an accessible website drive you to installing an overlay or plugin. Okay, so out there, most top-ranking websites today fail to face the test of accessibility. 98% of them do. You know where they fail at? The color contrast. So that's what they fail at. You can get through today for the use of overlays and plugins. It will not do the trick. The way to do it is to understand accessibility as part of the web development, as part of good design, as part of the user experience. Making the site accessibility is part of any good web design. Using an overlay and plugins wastes money anyway. It doesn't even encourage the internal capacity to make the website accessible. That's what I've seen happen. They put in a plugin and go, that was the initiative to learn how to become accessible, or learn to make things accessible. So if you do get a letter, it's a mail letter, first review if it's a real demand letter. Find your lawyer and have him take a look, have him or she take a look at it. Unfortunately, there's a lot of them out there that are cut and paste. They're not real. They're fake, or whatever you want to call it. I'm not a fan of the ambulance chasers out there, but unfortunately, there are some out there. Engage with an accessibility partner to get an audit done, to validate the demand letter. Those people can point out and show you how to proceed with the remediation and how to refine. I've listed 3 of them. The 3 top ones that I fear on this side here. This side will be shared with everyone. So the next step, I fear, where we all can go from here, is education. Begin by looking at the WCAG, which is the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. That's where I began. There are even now courses out there for developers to learn the CSS techniques, the area practices to enhance accessibility. There are courses out there for UX designers. Then the next one is the mindset. Accessibility is all about making the site usable and consumable for as many people as possible, regardless of whether or not they have a disability. It really is about inclusion. It's just developing that and becoming inclusive. And then start talking, have conversation. That's what we're doing here. We're going to be talking among ourselves. Talk about it with the partners. Talk about it with the clients. Talk about it with the employees. Talk about it with Shopify partners, app developers. Talk about it with the Shopify community. The more we talk about it, it becomes a priority. There is power behind numbers. Our words have power. And the last thing I want to leave with more than anything, aim for progress, not perfection. We have come such a long way. And I know this because I know that COVID, if more than anything, COVID has sped up the progress for accessibility. In the last 2 years, has done so much for the accessibility field. There is still a whole lot more that can be done. But there's much more that we can do. It can only begin with each one of us But the only way we can do it is by learning and talking and working together. So aim for progress, not perfection. At the last slide here, I listed some resources that are linked to valuable resources, the courses, how to design a lawyer. I have more. Don't be afraid to reach out to me. My favorite place to connect is on LinkedIn. That's where I am most of the time. I hang out there. I talk about Shopify, accessibility, and whatever else that comes to my mind. But this is who I am. I'm known as a sheet cover maker. And I am the director of client services at Parkfield Commerce. My two favorite people are here today, Richard and Thor. And I've been an accessibility advocate, and I will be for a long time. And I love to ride on my motorcycle. And I've been married for 35 years to my best friend. So let's take a look at the questions that we have here.
I love it. So yeah, if you have any questions, please put it in the chat. And then I myself have questions that I'll be sure to ask, but I would love to make sure that your questions get answered as well. One of the things the last thing that I really caught was like, and it just like changed my mind shift of this whole thing, was when you said most websites fail at accessibility with color contrast. And I love that because that is completely within your control. Like you can handle that. And I think what a lot of people say is, oh, it's technical. I don't understand how to make my site accessible. But contrast you can do. You have full control over that. I love it.
Yes, that is true. It is true.
Well, let me go ahead and ask some of my questions. Again, if you have any, feel free to put them in the chat. You talked about captioning your videos. YouTube has automatic captioning once it's uploaded into YouTube and it has time to process it. Do you find the automatic captioning to be sufficient? What's the tool that you recommend? Yeah.
No, I recommend two things. One is you can download the transcript and then make the correction and then re-upload it. Okay, that's the first thing I recommend. Okay, please don't just abide by the automatic. We call them corrections. Okay, but download it, fix it, and then re-upload it. Or you can get it professionally edited by, editing tools that are out there, like Rev was one of them. But there's many of them. But if you can do it yourself, just do it yourself.
Yeah, I think I've used Rev and I think it's Otter AI is the other one that I've used. Those are both good options too.
Yeah.
So going to the theme side of things, many themes have the cart drawers or the slide outs. And in my experience, I haven't found them to be accessible, but I'm curious if you have seen a shift more recently where those slide outs are accessible.
Yeah, and WCAG guidelines tell you how you can. You can put in the code, the error code, to be able to scribe. But you do have to notify the screen reader that there is something happening, that slide out is happening. So it's a development side that has to come in and be able to describe it.
Yeah, that's what I found too, was that when we were testing it, the screen reader wasn't notified that anything was added to the cart. So the gentleman I was testing it with just kept adding more and more to his cart. And he's like, I don't know, is it working? I'm like, no, you've got like 14 in there now.
Right. And that's something I need to clarify with the checkout process. That's the thing that the plugins fail.
Yeah.
They don't make the entire checkout process compliant or conform to the accessibility guidelines. Okay. They only fix certain things, but it's the entire checkout process that we're dealing with here. So that's what they fail.
Yeah. And in my experience, what I've recommended instead is for folks to, instead of using the cart drawer, just to direct your customer to the cart page, which then
Yes.
would be accessible because
Yes.
then it announces it, correct?
Yes. Yeah, that is
Yeah.
correct.
Cool. A question that I often get, because I work in SEO and people are often trying to add alt text to their images, is how to do that in a mass production sort of way. And usually my response is you can't. But I'm curious if you've used any of the alt text apps and found them to be valuable, or do you just recommend people to go buy your images one by one?
No, they aren't that bad, okay? But I always like to go back and double check them because those two reads, I always like to take it from the mind of a person who can't see the image. So there's my fear when I take it from the customer experience point of view. So I want to make sure a person using a screen reader or even a person who has low internet speed and they have to turn off that image, are they going to get that benefit out of that image? So if we just use that app, are they going to get that sufficient description out of it?
Yeah.
So that's why if I was going through it, just to make sure. That's my
wonderful. Thank you. And I'm going to just ask one last question because we are at time. So if you do have any questions for Christine, I put her LinkedIn in the chat. You're welcome to contact her. The last question would be, oftentimes in Facebook groups, people will talk about, an accessibility lawsuit that they received. And then there's always the one person that says, oh, you can ignore the ADA. It only applies if you have a certain number of people or if you have an on-premise site. Can you speak a little bit to that and what that means for people that are only e-commerce and if they have to comply with or try to conform to the standards of WCAG and not necessarily focusing on ADA?
No, I'm going to preface it with, again, I'm not a lawyer, okay? And here's what I understand. March of 22, the Justice Department, the DOJ, they put out a letter, and they're very vague, okay? They said general public, businesses that serve to the general public. And does the e-commerce business fall under that general public? And the way they put it was, okay, what falls under the general public business? And they listed retail. And where we quibble at is e-commerce. Well, they don't have a physical facility, a place where people can come in and pack objects, okay? And the other part where you mentioned, well, you don't qualify because you don't have 15 employees. There's that part too. I always say talk to a lawyer, okay? Because it varies state by state. And based on the number of lawyers, number of lawsuits, it's changing as the wind blows, as time goes by, all right? I always, in my thing, just do it because it's the right thing to do. I just pointed out the statistics that are out there. And at one point in time or another, you could become disabled. Okay, I'm disabled. I was born this way. But I'm just saying, one day your neighbor next day, something's gonna happen. At one point, it could be you're getting older. You could be. I just pointing out that group, people that are old and they're disabled, and then we've got just situational disability. We got temporary disability. Just do it because it's the right thing. Why risk getting that demand letter? That's my only thing.
I think it's a great point, though, to say if you're doing this to not get sued, you're doing it for the wrong reason, right? The reason why you should be doing web accessibility is because it is not just about whether or not someone with a disability is on your site trying to access it. It's that you don't know who's on your site. You don't know what they can or can't do, because there are so many different types of disabilities. And so, yeah, don't worry about the lawsuit. Do it because it's the right thing.
Right.
Yeah.
And you're getting more people that way too. You increase more money, more shoppers, more
Yeah,
That's it.
exactly. Well,
Yeah.
Christine, thank you so much. This was wonderful. I'm so grateful that you spent time with us to kind of talk through this. So I really appreciate it. And I know the folks that attended did as well. For those in the audience, I will be sharing the link, hopefully today or tomorrow. It depends on how long the process takes, but you will be getting the link. And yeah, I think that's everything. So thank you so much, Christine. I appreciate
Yeah.
it.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Have a great
Thanks,
one.
everyone.
Bye-bye.